Hey guys, welcome back on 11:59. Today we've got special guests. We've got Praveena here. The first thing I was going to ask you is, you touched on obviously your professional stuff. So what is like your main breadwinner?
Medicine. I'm a GP. I'm a GP working in the NHS at the moment. So that's what I do, and that's what provides the food, on our plate. Yeah, on a day-to-day basis.
And then you touch on like dancing. So obviously, for example, there's a lot of people that do side hustles.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they don't really mention it because probably they don't think they're professional in that field.
Yeah.
Obviously, you mentioned it. I'm a doctor and I'm also a dancer.
Yeah.
So how does that work to have like two full-time jobs really?
So that idea of thinking and taking dance as a profession, it took years. So I started my dance training when I was 5-6 years old, and 25 years on, I'm still doing dance and I'm still training and performing and teaching. And so that's when the switch from me just dancing to becoming a dancer took place when I was around 20, 21, 22. And so it took that long. And even before then, I've done my grades, as a Bharatanatyam dancer, because that's what I'm trained in. I did my diploma, I did my post-diploma. Then I started teaching, done my Arangetram. I did further training as well with teachers in India. So despite all of that training, which happened before the age of like 21, 22, it's only at around 21, 22 that I then was like, okay, I feel like I can call myself a dancer now.
Yeah.
And then I started delving into dance more deeply. And I ventured into Bhangra, I ventured into Bollywood, Kutte, and then I started exploring other avenues through dance. And then I was thinking, okay, how can I convert this and make this become part of a profession as well? So that's when I went into wedding choreography and teaching. And that's where my dance career is. All the performances I do, some of them, like when I have judging experiences, yes, that's like a paid opportunity. That's also part of the career. But loads of the performances I do is just coming from that basic thing that I started dancing for, which is passion and love for it.
Yeah, 100%. And what's interesting is, like a lot of people, obviously, when they go into what I'd classify as like, because obviously you go there from, I guess, your parents pushing it, or like the culture pushing it onto you. So it's a bit like not even a side hustle at that point, it's a hobby.
Yeah.
How do you make that hobby kind of make you a lot of, not a lot, but like, how do you make that hobby become something that more like a part-time job to a full-time job? How do you do that? What's the transition?
I started Bharatanatyam just as anyone did. And my parents were very honest with me, especially my mum. When she realized that I was doing okay with dance, that's when she started pushing me. And as a young girl, under the age of 10, I didn't know what I was doing. And when I was a teenager, I was a teenager. I had my lazy days. I didn't want to go to class, but my mum would still push me to do it because she believed that I had something for it, and she believed in that. Because she also took me to vocal classes and she realized that I didn't have a talent in singing. So then she, a few years later, she was like, I don't think this is for you. Let's stop you going to classes. So she was very honest with me about that.
Okay, cool.
And after a point, when I got into university, I think that was my mum's dream of, me finishing my grades, going up to my post-diploma, doing my Arangetram. And that's my mum's dream of dance. But then what came after that was all me, because up until then, she instilled something in me that made me realize this is something that's more for me than what it initially was. Yes, it was a hobby, but it started getting me out of like very low places. Every time I was low, I turned to dance. And that's when I formed a real deep connection with dance. And I was like, I can never let this go because this is actually part of my identity on a deeper level. And that's when I started turning that hobby into something that's part of my lifestyle. And when it becomes part of your lifestyle, you can't detach yourself from it. It's part of you. It's part of who you are. And then it became like a profession. And so I always it's always going to be there for me, no matter what I'm doing in life, no matter how sick or happy or sad, dance will always be there. And that transition happened after my mum was like, okay, you should calm down on the dancing now. You need to focus on your studies when you get into med school. I was like, no, I'm going to carry this on because this is giving me something more.
Cool. And I was gonna ask you, so you touched on, it's easy to look at people and be like, oh wow, they're great dancers. Obviously you've got a profession in the medicine areas, But then you've touched on like failing at singing or
Yeah.
like not being good enough
Yeah.
to make it through the cut, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
So how does that like happen? Did you try like many hobbies and then
Yeah.
like many things and then okay, you don't like this and then now your mom doesn't like doing this one.
Yeah.
And then eventually there's something that fits.
Yeah.
Is that how it went?
It's a lot of trying. I initially had to do music because I had to do vocal because of dance. So to do my diploma and post-diploma, I had to do a minimum of grade 3 and grade 4 in vocal.
Interesting.
So that's how I jumped into it. Now, I was learning with my sister at the time, and my sister's a singer. And I knew as well, singing isn't for me. But I tried. And I wasn't horrendous at it, but there's that innate passion that you have for it.
Yeah.
My sister had it, and I didn't. And therefore that reflected in the way I sang, the way I performed, how much effort I put into it in comparison to dance. Like dance, I would dedicate hours on end for dance and I would not think about anything. But with music, I just wasn't there. And that affected the way I performed as well.
Yeah.
And my mum identified it, I identified it. And I wouldn't count that as a failure. I think it's part of life, like trying new things. Some things work, some things don't, but you learn from it. And one thing I have learned from it is the importance of training in something.
Yeah.
So I can sing, but I'm not a singer. And that's really important. And this is
Yeah.
how I feel about dance.
It goes back to what we said at the beginning. That's what I said. A lot of people
Yeah.
do side hustles or side
Yeah,
things, but
yeah.
they wouldn't say necessarily that they're dancers.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. It really does, because I think we're in, and I can only speak from a dance, from a dance angle because I'm in that community. Many people dance, and many of us dance. It took me around 15 to 18 years before of dance training professionally before I can then have the confidence to call myself a dancer. And that's because it's more than just a mindset thing. It's about, I've got a lot of training backing me up now. When I perform, there's a quality that I have to hit. If I call myself a dancer, there's a level of quality that I expect of myself. So that switch happened in me. That's when I started calling myself a dancer. We're in the zone where, everyone dances and everyone should dance because dance is universal.
Because of what your sister did, like she's obviously singing and you're dancing, I guess a lot of cultural traditions were pushed onto you guys, right?
Yeah.
Is it just two of you in the family?
Just the two of us.
Okay,
yeah.
cool. So if one ended up a dancer, one ended up a singer.
Yeah, exactly.
And plus they pushed you into... Veena is obviously an instrument for the people that don't know.
It's a string instrument, very large instrument.
Yeah.
It for those who know about Hinduism and the Hindu gods and goddesses, Saraswati plays the veena.
Yeah.
And it's like a long string instrument.
Yeah. Almost sounds like a violin as well.
Yeah,
Veena.
exactly.
Yeah, so when you get pushed all these things, is it right to say they're cultural hobbies? But technically they are. But I guess they're like interest. Like a lot of Asian parents like to push the aspects of, being a doctor, being an engineer, and so on. And that's also like a little another thing for the side. They don't want you to just go around and play football.
Yeah.
They would prefer you doing those things that they loved watching, which is the dancing, the singing, and obviously playing instruments. Because those traditions or those jobs back in the days were highly regarded.
Yes,
if you knew how to sing, if you knew how to dance, if you knew how to perform with like an instrument, you were like in the society. You were like, oh, like this person is amazing. Let's go see a concert. And it's funny because it's not the same vision for stuff like, music videos or like acting is not perceived the same way, you know. So those are like you said, there is like not only the parents like the stuff like the Veena and stuff like that, but it's also religiously regarded for decades.
Yes.
And I was gonna ask you in terms of, you're singing at this point. Let's go back a couple of years ago. You're singing at this point. Was your sister in the same sort of class as you, or is that okay? Cool. To the
My
teacher,
sister still torments me about this because
Okay.
she's obviously become the singer and she's a very good singer.
Yeah.
But she'd always say, Praveena, I still remember in shows, you would get the mic and I wouldn't. And she's obviously 6 years younger, but we were all in the same class. We all started together.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but so when you're in the singing classes, I guess your age don't matter, right? It's your level.
Yeah, it's your
more
level.
by level. So you could be 6 years old with a 12 years old in the same sort of band.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So when you go into those classes, and now it adds a little bit more when you say you're a class topper, and your mom pulls you out and says you're not good enough, how does that feel? Because obviously your sister's still there. And like, did you even think like, okay, cool, now I actually want to stay with them. My sister's there.
So actually, no, I didn't have any
Okay.
emotions towards it, which is probably why I knew that it wasn't for me.
Okay, fair
Because
enough.
I was so like I was so indifferent to
Yeah.
being, my mum saying, okay, we need to
100%.
stop now.
Yeah.
If when my mum told me, around the time of me going into university, okay, now it's time for you to stop dancing,
Yeah.
that I took personally.
Okay.
And that's when I knew that emotion that I felt.
Yeah.
And I
Oh, she did?
She told me you should
Okay.
stop. And when I started first year of university, I was preparing for a Bhangra competition.
Yeah.
I injured my foot, and that was like, I was like, that's it. Dance isn't for you. You've been getting injuries.
I was going to ask you, so obviously I feel like parents in that
Yeah.
so generation, they wanted to push us into stuff like this, like dance and stuff like that. But once it became almost like a choice, like you said, when you become an adult,
Yeah.
or once you decide to go into a career like meds or engineering, whatever,
Yeah.
obviously it takes a lot of time. So that's when I feel like they give up on their hobbies.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you actually went for it and you said, no, I'll keep both of them. But how do
Yeah.
you go around with a fractured foot?
I was on crutches for a month. It was a hairline fracture initially, but me being me at the age of 18, 19, when I really wanted to do this Bhangra comp that I got selected for, I was like, I'm going to carry on dancing. Silly mistake. As a result, it got worse. So then I couldn't, dance for a long period of time. Even though I'd recovered and I was walking fine, I think inside I was still scared, and I wanted to make sure I was fully recovered and my body was ready to go back into the intensity of dancing again. So I took that decision because I've also trained other dancers, and when they've had an injury, that's one thing I've said to them. If you want to carry on dancing in the long run, you need to stop now. It's not, I'm not telling you to quit. I'm saying you pause, recover, come back to it. If dance means that much to you, and at that point dance meant so much to me, I had to say no to that competition 4 weeks before. They had to find a replacement, and I said, I'm doing this. I know it's not ideal. I could have carried on if I wanted to, but then I wouldn't have been able to dance for the rest of my life pretty much, because it would have got worse, and I would have been in pain long term, and I wasn't ready for that. So it was a difficult decision at the time, but I think that's when I realized, you know what, this means a lot to me. I'm making this decision for my long run and for my long-term kind of dance plan. And when I started uni, I think my plan was, once I'm out, I'm just going to focus on teaching, but I never realized that I would carry on performing as much as I do.
100%.
And that's what gives me the drive to carry on teaching and, like wedding choreo and all of that. Yeah.
So that's, you're touching on something interesting now, is I was going to ask you, how, because of those things that we say, it's a hobby plus almost like a part-time / full-time job. How do we monetize the hobby, basically?
Yeah. So I would say it's, for me right now, dance is more than a hobby. And I think that transition happened very early on, actually, a few years into, when it became a thing where it was part of my routine. I'd come from school, I would go to dance class every Saturdays and Tuesdays were my dance class days. It became part of my routine. So then naturally that mindset started to shift where dance is part of my routine. So it's more than just a hobby that I do whenever I'm free. It's actually something that's instilled in me. So that shift happened very early on. And then when I wanted to think of money, I decided on one thing. I was like, I still want dance to be a passion for me.
100%.
And the passion comes from me performing and not having to worry about money, because we have a tendency where in some scenarios when we put money on it, on certain performances, naturally our drive for it does go down.
100%.
So what I decided was I'm going to categorize dance into different avenues. Wedding choreography is a teaching platform. It's for a short span. It's for clients and couples who come in who don't have the experience of dancing and they want someone professional to help them do like a nice simple dance. So I thought this could be a small business venture that I make money out of. But even then, I'm very flexible with clients because at the end of the day, my priority is for them to enjoy that experience of dancing. And I don't want them to have a bad time, because for me, dance means so much, and I want them to experience that. And
Yeah.
that's my priority.
And it's hard not to be strict because you probably have like rules. You can't do this, you can't do that. But at the same time, a couple's just trying to have a dance.
Yeah, exactly. They're having a couple dance. It's very chill when a group come together. I think managing a group's a lot more difficult because there's more people.
Like groups is also not just a couple.
So I do like group dances, especially girls' dances come my way a lot.
For those that don't know, it's because like in most Asian weddings, being already, there will be a family performance.
Yes, yeah.
Most of them got different jobs, got nothing to do with dancing.
Yeah.
So they're not all dancers, and then I guess that's where you come.
Yeah,
and play.
exactly. I mean, South Asian weddings are a big affair, and it's part of the culture. Music and dance is part of our culture. So actually dance plays such a huge role in the weddings and the reception. And in India, for example, the wedding choreography industry is huge.
Yeah.
In Canada, it's really big as well, especially in our Tamil community. In Canada, the wedding choreography industry is really big. Now in the UK, it's getting better.
Makes sense,
I think just as more people are putting it out there. So wedding choreography was like a business venture that I was taking seriously, and I was very kind of consistent with it. And then I only recently started teaching Bharatanatyam. That's been on my mind for years. I wanted to go back to teaching Bharatanatyam.
So that's a style of dancing.
Yeah, so because it's such a huge part of our Tamil culture when it comes to the arts, that's what I was trained in. And then I went into Bhangra, like professional training. So Bharatanatyam, I wanted to start teaching that, and I've started with little kids at the moment and just teaching them Bharatanatyam. So those are my two main avenues how I kind of monetize dance.
Yeah.
And it's come through sharing what I've learned and sharing that on to others. When it comes to performances and, doing team performances or doing solo performances, I don't really think about money so much. It really depends on what platform it is, whether that platform's something that my dance is going to be beneficial for, and what am I going to get out of it. Outside of the money, what am I going to get out of it? Like, am I going to enjoy this experience? And if there are certain criteria that it meets, then I will be like, okay, I'm happy to perform. I'm not too strict with money. That doesn't mean I'm just going to go and perform for free. I have a criteria, like, is this stage worth performing for? I've stopped doing like club events, for example, because I don't think that's...
They're not your clientele.
Yeah, they're not my clientele. And I just feel like, dance, I can do a club performance if I wanted to, but I think dance should be valued more than just dancing in a club. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
And I guess in a club, you will have to adjust what you're doing because they're not because obviously dancing's got hundreds of styles of dancing, and that's might not be your vibe. And
exactly, yeah. Even though, like, we can wrap up with the routine and perform in a club, but is that going to give me like happiness in the long run? Not much. Like,
if you have to change your routine.
Yeah, exactly. Like I can get a group together and perform, but ultimately it's not going to give me that satisfaction of actually having done a very worthwhile and meaningful performance.
Yeah. It's a bit like telling a teacher to do a different class.
Yeah.
Exactly. Teaching maths and then tomorrow you're teaching science, like two things that you might not enjoy.
Exactly. It's just the environment. It is important, like what environments you choose to perform in. And as a dancer, I have to have those kind of, values set in place very early on, so I can make those decisions and confidently say no to certain scenarios as well. And I just tell them, look, I used to do like a few, and if it was like a friend's event, for example, I'll do it for them. But otherwise, after a point, I said no, because this is not what I want my dance to be viewed as, or, when it comes to presenting it, like I can't do justice to what I've learnt. And that's what I want my performances to reflect.
That makes sense, yeah. And what's interesting is in terms of the whole aspects of doing jobs and, where do you find the time really? Because what you said sounds like a full-time job. Like, you're teaching kids, you're teaching couples, you're teaching groups for weddings. And then, it's like, being a teacher is somewhat a full-time job. Yeah. And how do you find the time to align with your own made breadwinner, which is obviously being a GP?
Yeah.
So how does that work?
So when I was younger or like even a few years ago, if anyone asked me this question, I never really knew the answer to it. I'll be honest. Now I've realized that it is all those little habits that my mum instilled in me from very young. When I was saying earlier, like, it was a routine. Like, okay, school was a 9 to 5 thing.
Yeah.
I'd come home, I'd have class on Tuesdays. I'd eat, get ready for class, I'd go. And then during, you know, when exams got more intense for dance, it would be like class every other day. So I'd go to school, come, you know, do homework in the gap, go for class. And that mentality and it really did prep me. And I can't imagine my life any other way now, because that habit is, whether my mum realized it or not, she instilled it in me from a very, very young age. So when I got into university, the thought of me just going to uni and then coming back and just chilling just didn't align, because I was like, I've done this for like 10, 15 years now. How can I just not do that anymore? And now it's just like, you know, if I've got a routine, like I'm working on these days, then I know that these days I'll have like a few hours today. This day's for dance. This day's for like family. This day's for friends. So I've got that balance now.
You know, like there's always that thing, like you probably don't get what I'm going to say, but as people that don't dance, so I'm one of them, we always have this view on us that one day we'll have the best moves on the dance floor with your friends at your friend's wedding or in the club or whatever. So when you can dance, do you go into a dance floor at the club or at your friend's wedding thinking, okay, I'm going to show these losers what's up? Or do you actually like level down and don't do much because you don't want to show like the dancer's ability?
I do this on a daily basis.
100%.
Everyone knows I'm a dancer. I don't need to do it again and again to prove that I am.
Facts.
And throughout like reception and everything, I was like, guys, I'm so chill. We did our reception dance in like a few days. My cousins came from, you know, their countries, like Canada, Australia, France, and they all came. I literally taught them in like one day, guys, I'm not going to spend time on this. I'm very chill. I just want everyone to have a good time. I don't care if you make mistakes. We're just all there to have a good time. And that's how I looked at my own wedding and everything.
Cool.
And yeah, on the dance floor, I'm just like chill. Like if there's like a Bhangra music that comes, because I think in the Tamil community, there aren't many Bhangra dancers. So when people know I'm there, if they pull me in and they're like, Praveena, do something, then I'll be like, okay, fine, I'll show a few moves. Cool. And then that's it, I'm out. I'm like, I just want to chill and just relax.
Cool. Yeah, because you know, people like me that can't dance, we go in there thinking that we can. Like,
no, but you know, that's the reason. Dance is meant to be, it is a universal language. Everyone can dance, even if you say you can't.
I mean, if jumping is dancing now, let's do it.
Jumping is, spinning is, whatever. Everything is counted as dance. Movement is counted as dance. And they say actually, even if you don't dance, actually on a general basis, on a day-to-day basis, if you want like 5-10 minutes to relieve stress, just playing some music, and even if that is jumping around to music, that's counted as dance, and it's actually very 100%. Good for, you know, reducing our stress levels.
I get you.
So it's universal. I enjoy being on the dance floor with people who don't maybe dance as often, because actually it's just fun. We're just there to do simple moves, have fun, no judgment, and it's great.
Okay, cool. And you know, like this time last year, I set myself, I do this I've started 2 years ago now, but I try to do this every year where I do a list of things I want to do for this year.
Okay.
So for example, 2024, I mean now it's 2025, but in 2024 I had a list of things that I wanted to do. Like I was like, start a new activity, do more exercise, healthier, and then I do it like a job. So in 3 months I will have a self-review for myself, and I'll mark it with colors. And most of it I read, but you know, so one of them was start a new activity, and then this time last year I started to a street dancing course.
Oh, amazing!
Yeah, it's weird. Like people at because I work in an office as well, so people are like, "Yo, that's not really you," and I'm guessing you probably think the same right now.
It's definitely shocking, because especially that you were saying all this time that you don't dance, etc.
No, I mean, like, I don't think that I went far with it.
No. But how did it go?
It's super hard, you know. Really, it's super hard. And I went to the street dance, and it was it's in central London. And it's a course like. I know there's a lot of people that can do that in our community and stuff like that, but that kind of fit with me because it was with so after work I would go there, because you know, like most activities that are based in central London, they're obviously based with office working hours. So basically, when I finished work on a Monday, it was perfect. I'll make myself to the studio and I would perform, and it was just perfect. You know, like in terms of timing. Because that's more important. Like, especially
it needs to fit around your lifestyle for sure.
Whereas the others, like, I'm not ready to, you know, like go to like someone's house or go to someone's studios. That's so long coming back from work. So it was right there in Central, so I just did it, and it was like 8 weeks. And I remember I went through the first class, so they're 1 hour each, and it was a beginner's class.
Yeah.
And the first 15 minutes I kind of followed.
Yeah.
And after that, I was completely lost. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. There was so much going on, so many moves going on. And I was just so confused. And then the next day, the next time I came, the second day, like, she just explained to me what the first 15 minutes were. And they were just basically stretching. Like, so then it made me like even more shook because all I understood was the stretching bit.
Was it like an advanced streak?
No, it wasn't. But the thing is, like, they were saying it's beginner. Like, that's what I asked as well. I was like, well, I kind of chose like beginner, but I didn't expect it to be like this. But then she was telling me how I get you, it is more advanced, but the problem is like you need to challenge yourself as well. You can't just be like, because you're beginner, expect things to be slow. So you have to catch up to it. Eventually, she said that I was catching up to it, and eventually it was less annoying.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to remember moves, and you know when they go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you're good, and then but then they carry on. There's another one, and then it's just because they're 5 minutes, like for like less than 5 minutes for like a whole choreography, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's like you practice it for an hour. At the end of the hour, I'm done. I forgot the first moves, you know. So I'm just following slide and move. You said
something very interesting there, and this is something that's actually showcasing your determination. No matter how hard it was, you probably were experiencing micro improvements every time. Every move that you were doing within a class, you were probably experiencing. You may have not felt it because, as when we're in like challenging environments, all we experience is the challenge. This is hard. I feel like I'm out of my depth. But you are probably experiencing micro like improvements, and that just exponentially grew over the course that you did, which is why towards the end you were like, okay, you know what? Like, I've completed it, and you eventually did catch up, and that just shows that even though you may not have been like, okay, I'm a dancer or whatnot, you've still built that skill, and that may not have been the dance skill, but it may have been something more internal.
Yeah. I get you. So for someone that wants to start, like, what's the basis? What do you do? Because obviously I didn't know much. Like I said, I went for like my scheduling, you know, like with work. But what's like the basis on start? Obviously I gave up after 8 weeks, but like, so I can close that chapter.
8 weeks is still a long time. You'd be surprised, actually. You would be surprised.
I mean, it's because I prepaid. So it was
okay, that makes
it was like, annoying. I had to stick for 8 weeks.
I need to get my money.
Yeah, I was just like, shall I give up? And then I was like, no, they're not going to refund me, so let's just carry on.
But well done you. For
thank you. So I can't do much still, but yeah, I can slide a little.
I'm excited to see Julian's dance moves on the dance floor next time.
But so where do we start? Like, let's say I want to dance. Like, obviously, I know kids that start from the beginning, but I'm talking about like people like me that, you know, like, I'm not 25 anymore, but 25 onwards after uni. What happens? What's the steps now? Because we're washed, you know, when we compared to people that are been learning from since they were kids. It's almost like a language. So where do you start?
So I think the first thing that you mentioned is something that I would highlight big, and that's what is my schedule, and how would picking up a new hobby or an art, learning something, fit into that schedule without causing much disruption. The reason is because you're more likely to stick to it. Loads of Bharatanatyam teachers. My teacher still teaches Bharatanatyam. So loads of the old teachers.
Who's your teacher?
So I learned from Rajni Suresh Kumar.
Okay.
So she's based in Wembley. And she was doing, when I was learning with her, she was doing classes in Wembley and Hayes. And then afterwards, after like my, Arangetram and everything, I did further training with Divya Sena and Shobhana Balachandar from India. So I did further training with them. So there are loads of instructors for Bharatanatyam. Bhangra, there are loads of West London classes, and there are Bhangra actual academies now as well that run weekly classes. And obviously, if there's anyone who wants to learn a particular style and they don't know where to start, finding someone who does that style, most dancers now have an Instagram page, so finding someone who does that style and figuring out where they can learn that style from. If people want to learn Afro, there are Afro instructors. I think there's, Adi, he does a lot of Afro like professional work, and he knows all the classes in London. So just reaching out to these people to be like, look, I'm a beginner. I want to learn. What's the best route to do it? That particular style. That's the way I would go about it, and making sure it fits with your schedule, like I said, without causing too much disruption, because it means that you're going to stick to it, and that's important as 100%, well. Yeah. 100%.
And it's interesting. The reason why I asked for the names, so the people that don't know, these like sort of jobs or professions like dancing, especially the traditional ones, are passed on families, heritage-wise. So even some of your parents may know of the teacher or the teacher's parents because they were teaching back home. Yeah. So it's quite interesting. So I worked with Nandini Akka. I don't know if you know her. In Harrow. Yeah. I think she does the same, right?
Yes.
She's we did like a video for her. Yeah. So that's why I was asking if
yeah. I mean, the Bharatanatyam community, I was talking to Pira's a dancer from Switzerland, and he was talking to me because his wife's a Bharatanatyam and classical trained dancer, and she's beautiful. Already, most people know her if they follow dance work, and just talking about some of the kind of difficulties in the Bharatanatyam community. Generally speaking, there's still, when we were growing up, there was a lot of animosity between dance teachers, and it's like, if you learn from one, it's like competing with the other dance teachers' students. And
100%.
I don't know, I can't speak for the Bharatanatyam community in here right now because I've come back into it after a long break, and I'm just kind of traveling as a solo kind of Bharatanatyam teacher. So I don't know what the relationship is between the teachers. I would love to collaborate with other Bharatanatyam teachers and, share experiences, because we all come with different training experiences. There probably is that little, friction there. I don't know. But I know that in other European countries, maybe even further away from there is still a little bit of kind of
hostility.
And just exploring. So if a dancer, if you've got a Bharatanatyam training, if that dancer wants to explore other things, there is a lot of resistance.
Friction,
a lot of resistance. Wow. And that should change. Because I think being a Bharatanatyam dancer is what has given me really good dance foundations to pick up other dance styles. And I think as a Bharatanatyam dancer, when you're really well trained in it, it gives you such good endurance and stamina and flexibility to tap into other dance styles. So actually, if a dancer wants to explore other stuff, I'm hoping that teachers, instructors don't resist them from doing that, and just let them explore, because it's art. Once you teach it, it's theirs. Even if it's the basics, once you teach it, it's theirs now. It's not yours to hold on to.
It's interesting, but would you say that when people bring their kids to you, they'll also use your teacher's name? Do you think that's a thing? Or is that not a thing? Like, for example, so would they say, she got taught by X and Y?
So the students I have, they're not so much, none of them have asked me who my teacher was, interestingly.
Okay, cool.
I think they've just looked at my dance.
Your own resume.
My own resume, what I've done and how I perform. And they've come to me based on that, which I'm grateful for. And obviously if they wanted to know, and if they ask, I'll tell them. And then they can explore, where that training is. And
now I'm only saying this because I felt like that was something like, I've never was into dancing, but the aunties of my family will come home and they'll say, this teacher taught me, that teacher taught me. Again, bringing back to why I asked you the name, I have no idea who this person is, but I know how things work in our community, and it's sometimes, unfortunately, like by name, isn't it? So
that's actually interesting that you mentioned that. I don't know if I've noticed it, because I've never asked. When I see another Bharatanatyam a dancer, there's a few Bharatanatyam dancers I know, and I know who their teachers are, and that's because we've gone long back. We've all grown up dancing together.
Because obviously people meet at shows and stuff like that.
So exactly. So I know loads of Bharatanatyam dancers in my kind of age group through that, and I know who their instructors and teachers have been. But I've never, if I see a new Bharatanatyam dancer, I've never asked them who their teacher is or who their guru is. I don't think it's ever crossed my mind to ask, and it's maybe because I see dance, it's an art form.
And
I don't know if that's and I don't know if that's the right way to go about it, because I think Bharatanatyam traditionally has a lot of values behind it. Whether that fits in with our Western, it probably doesn't.
It probably doesn't.
It probably doesn't, which is why I don't ask.
Yeah.
I just look at their Bharatanatyam like skill set, and that's it, and that's where we leave it at. I don't know. I've never really noticed it, but I do get you. Like when I was, growing up, it was like, my dance teacher would be like, "I'm a student of."
Yeah.
I'm a student of.
Yeah. So that, because I'm taking stuff that I've heard in my teenage years, so that's why I'm like.
And I think maybe
because
I've got training from, obviously my foundations were from Srimati Rajini Suresh Kumar, and that was for a good 15 years or so.
Yeah.
And then I started learning from other teachers as well. And I think that shouldn't be seen as a bad thing. I think it's because every teacher offers different learnings. So you're picking up new things. And this isn't just for dance. This applies to any sport or anything. Because any art form, even in academics, learning from different. When I was a GP trainee, I had 2 different trainers. Yeah. And they both taught me completely different things, and I learned from that. And so that's how it works. So it's applicable to all avenues of life.
Again, like trying to take it back to simple classrooms is, you might like a maths teacher in year 8, and you might have a better one in year 9. Yeah. Or you might have like one that's like that you least like or whatever, but it's like different sort of skills.
Exactly.
But technically it's the same sort of art.
And I think that's probably why I've never said, okay, I'm a disciple of.
But it's interesting because you say her name like proudly.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not clearly. This is what I mean. Like, it's still. I feel like there's still some sort of like.
Yes.
You need to know the name, but at the same time, for you, obviously, because you've grown up in the culture around, it's
and I'm also hoping when I say the name and people look at my dance repertoire since I kind of went from did dance, I'm hoping that will be a proud moment for her as well, to be like, you know what, she learned from me and she's exploring dance in so many different ways. And that's why I say it proudly, because I'm 100%. I believe that I'm still working on dance and still bettering myself. Yeah. And that's a good skill set that she's instilled in me. 100%. So that's only a credits to her.
100%. I get you. But so closing up on the dancing chapter, obviously we've got like your full-time job.
Yeah.
So the real question is, do you Google stuff when people come to you?
The honest thing is yes. Yes,
okay,
I do. And I mainly like our clinical guidance. I'm always like checking our clinical guidance because I'm still a young GP.
What is the clinical guidance?
So we have, if someone comes in with certain symptoms and we suspect, they may, if it's an infection, let's take an infection. Yeah. If it's an infection of some sort and they've tried one antibiotic and it isn't helping them, we've done swabs and we know what it is, and we then have to check our guidance to see what other antibiotics may be suitable for them, or if...
So it's like a book?
It's like a book, It's because we need to practice medicine safely. That's all it is. And I don't shy away from telling my patients as well, I'm going to check the guidance, and I check it in front of them. So then it also gives them the confidence as well that we are practicing evidence-based medicine. It's like infection,
this color means this.
Yes, exactly. So if it's like a chest infection and they've tried the initial kind of penicillin-based antibiotic and it's not worked, then there is a second line guidance that our local antibiotic guidance suggests.
Get you.
And because there are so many infections that people come in with, it's very difficult to remember.
100%.
And also the guidance keeps changing because antibiotic resistance is becoming a thing. So every few years the guidance will change as to what the best antibiotic is. So I will check the guidance. And sometimes patients come in with their own research about something. They've got got symptoms. They feel that it may be something, and I may have never come across it. And I've usually had to like speak to my senior GPs, and they've never come across this condition as well. So then I openly tell patients, look, I've never come across this. I need to do research, and then I write to the specialists. Some of them have very little experience of it, so they then have to consult other specialists from other hospitals. So that happens a lot as well. And I've tried to be as open and honest with patients if I don't know, because the thing with being a GP is anything and everything can walk through the door. It's not like when you're a specialist, dermatology, it's all skin related. for me, it could be dermatology, it could be
They
pediatric,
could
like
come for
children.
like their teeth, and then you have to send it to the dentist and so on. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And making sure that, you know, if a teeth problem comes to me, even though I'm not a dentist, I need to first see if they're, make sure that they're not septic, if they've got an infection, because if they are septic, then that it's my responsibility to send them into the hospital.
Yeah.
So there's so much that comes in so many different ways. And being a GP, we also have to deal with a lot of other things like benefits. You know, if people are really struggling with their health mentally, physically, and they need kind of benefits for that, and then the GP comes in to write reports. So there's a lot more to GP than just the clinical aspect of it. So that's why it's very, like, I won't know everything. I'm learning everything as I go along. And I'm definitely 1.5 years in, I'm a lot more confident in certain aspects because I've seen and managed it so much. I'm still learning other aspects, and I don't shy away from telling patients that. And I think patients now appreciate it as well, which I'm grateful for. They appreciate that honesty because then, and they appreciate them being involved in that decision making. So do I Google? I check our guidance a lot, and I do that in front of patients, and I don't shy away from it. Yeah, it's just so they're aware as well. Okay, you know what? She's checked the guidance. She's doing what's safe.
So touching on this is, sometimes I go to like the hospital and GP and like the normal people. I'm classifying myself in there because I don't know anything about the medicine aspect of things. Sometimes we feel like we're mistreated, or we feel like, oh no, like they're just doing it quickly right now because they obviously you're overworked. Would you say that's like a real thing, like you're overworked and it's tough? Or would you say it's just because right now it's like, you know, because I've been at hospitals where the GP, the doctor, and you know, because in hospitals they got their own doctors. You'll say, okay, I'll come back in a minute, and then you'll ask the nurse if he's coming back, and she's like, oh, he's gone home. So it's like, So what is that like?
So one thing I've told myself is, if I'm going to make such a promise, firstly, we shouldn't make such promises to patients because patients come to us with a lot of hope, and this is their health. You know, health is the most valuable thing that we have, and the one thing that we can work on as well for ourselves and give for ourselves. And so when they come with, as patients, and I'm a patient myself, you know, like if I have health problems, I need to go to my own GP. And so in that position, you feel vulnerable. So with patients, if I say, okay, in 2-3 weeks, once I've heard back from a specialist, let me get in touch with you. It's simple things. I make notes to myself. Okay, I send myself a task in 2-3 weeks time. If I haven't heard back, let me just update the patient with a little message saying, look, I haven't forgotten about you. We're still waiting for this advice. Or if we've got the advice, I let them know. And about being overworked, I think we're in a very difficult climate in the NHS at the moment because staffing levels have reduced massively. There's the pressure of, you know, what's coming through the doors is increasing because health and wellness, I think people are becoming more aware of it. Illnesses, different, you know, our Western illnesses are becoming more predominant. Diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, mental health, all of this has become so much more. We don't have enough staff to manage that. You know, our GP, I think, has around 7,000 to 8,000 patients. And on average, we have like 2 GPs per day. And that's, imagine like how many requests come through. And understandably, when patients come into me and they've got multiple, you know, issues, I'm like, I want to hear all your problems, honestly, and I try and get them to make a list of everything. Okay, so you've said you've got a few things to discuss. Let's make a list of everything. What's your priority today? I have 10, 15 minutes.
That's a good point you're touching on, but because like what I think Praveena is getting to is when you go to the GP because you've had like headaches for several weeks. But at the same time, you might have like an infection on your like elbow, or you might have like chest infection, like you said. So they're 2 different things. And because we're at the GP, we'll just think, let's just get it done.
And that's
but from your point,
understandable.
Thank you for coming through. And on time, early. Now forget on time, you're early. So yeah, thank you again. And you guys make sure you check out Praveena's pages. And quickly, I know you've also you've got like an interview process thing. identity.
Identity, yes,
Yeah, identity. That's it.
I
Do you wanna talk about
started it.
before
Yeah,
we-
it's very obviously I do like loads. Dance has enabled me to connect with loads of people.
Yeah.
So identity with Praveena is like it's like a talk show kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's I wouldn't say it's a podcast because you're doing like a proper podcast and everything. It's more like
but it's like an interview.
it's like an interview thing. It's an interaction mainly focused on those in the entertainment industry, predominantly dance.
Yeah.
Because that's my field of interest. But then I started it last year. It's a bit slow to pick up just because I've got so many other things going on. But I'm trying to be a little bit more committed to it this year, and just interacting with new people. I just enjoy it. Like like how you probably enjoy. Like,
100%.
It's a very nice experience. Just
it's a nice
sitting and talking and learning from people.
Yeah. So make sure you guys check out Praveena. Obviously, you can check out the dance pages, but at the same time, identity as well.
Yeah.
Any other ventures that you're doing this year or launching?
Obviously, Showdown is something that I've been doing. Showdown's a dance show that I work with my team, and we've been doing it. We've done our third one end of last year. So that will be coming up later on this year as well. It's a dance competition, but it's not solely for university students because I think that's what we're so used to seeing. It's actually for anyone and everyone who's interested in dance. You've got independent dance teams if you're a solo dancer. It's catering for every dance.
Is that like
dancer.
the X factor of dancing, would you say?
Well, I hope one day. But it's a very inclusive because I feel like when I got out of university, there wasn't anything for me as someone who's been at uni, but I don't want to be involved in like university competitions. It's a space for them, for dancers like that who want that. So that will be coming up later on this year. And maybe a few more. I'm still like thinking of ideas.
I'm sure.
I'm just thinking. I'm just like cooking up stuff in my brain and trying to make it a reality is the hard part. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
All right, guys. So make sure you check it out. Make sure you subscribe as well. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you. Have a lovely year, everyone.